Hola a todos, ¿qué tal? Bienvenidos a un nuevo vídeo del arte de invertir. Hoy tenemos un formato especial con un invitado de honor, como es el CEO de Nagarro, Manas Human. Como muchos de vosotros ya sabréis, es un top holding en los fondos que gestionamos, es una compañía que admiramos mucho y normalmente no nos reunimos con equipos directivos, pero creo que es una parte importante comprender cómo operan desde dentro las compañías y creo que os puede aportar mucho valor acerca del futuro de la compañía, cuál es su ventaja competitiva, qué riesgos puede haber, cuáles son sus planes financieros a futuro. Y es una oportunidad, ya os digo, increíble pues de tener al fundador, al CEO, pues compartiendo hoy con nosotros todos estos temas. Así que espero que disfrutéis la entrevista, que os lo paséis bien y si os gusta el formato, pues podemos continuar en el futuro con compañías que admiramos mucho dentro de la cartera o que consideramos equipos directivos excelentes. Así que vamos a empezar. So, Manas, nice to have you here. It's a great pleasure for me to share this time with you talking about the Nagarro, what you are building, and you are one of the best management teams that I know in our portfolio. So from day one, we have invested in the company since the spin-off, and we like a lot the culture and what you are building inside Nagarro. So,
Alhan, I would also like to say thank you very much for having me here. I remember at the time of the spin-off, you had a program
yeah,
which was in Spanish, but I tried to
yeah.
translate and understand it, which covered Nagarro, and I was very happy to see that. And it was very comprehensive, very detailed, and quite accurate. Very well thought out. So I was very impressed. And as a result of that program, we have many retail investors from Spain. So it's a pleasure to be here with you again, and in some ways, close the loop on what started a couple of years ago. So thank you very much for having me.
Thank you for spending the time watching the video. I have never imagined that it will be reached that far. So first, I think it's great to start sharing your journey. How do you decided to start in this business, in this digital engineering? How do you decide to found this company?
So it's two parts. The first part was that I went to the US to study, and I was at Stanford when everything was going crazy. You had Sergey Brin there, you had all these people were just college students, and I have once cooked chicken curry for Sergey Brin, which is one of my high points of my life. Anyway, but Stanford showed that people from all around the world were able to work together in technology. And in some of my projects, I remember in one project we had someone from France, someone from China, someone from Russia, and we were working like a team. And I always thought that this is the new world. This is cool. This is fun. I was not so comfortable with the more management side of things. I like this tech part. And then later, I happened to go to the Harvard Business School despite the not liking management that much. But I went to the technology and operations management group there and began to work with a professor there who was, really very good at operations management. And we were consulting into Belgium with Johnson and Johnson. Jan had just bought Janssen Pharmaceutica in Belgium, and they had a supply chain problem, and trying to solve that as a young 25 year old, or whatever, roughly in that range. I built the first software, and it was a plant scheduling software. And my professor was very generous. He said, "You can keep the money," and it was like $50,000. It was a huge amount, right?
Yeah.
And so we started the company. I started a company, small company, to have to use this money to do more things, right? And this was I started a company in India, even if though I was working in Austin because I wanted to come back. And then a few years later, I met another set of friends who had their own small company. And at some point, we decided to merge our company and call it Nagarro. And then along the way, more and more and more people like us who started their own companies in different countries and they built it up. And we all come together to create what Nagarro is today. So it's very different from the Nagarro of 1996, but it's something special today. In between, I was in one sense a co-founder, but I was in and out of the company for the first 10 years. I was doing other startups and other ventures, but finally came back part-time around 2006, and from 2010 or 11 full-time, and from 2014 or so in my current role, right? So yeah, that's my story with Nagarro.
No, it's a great success story because maybe I think 10 years ago you had only 800 employees. Now you are 20 times bigger than in those times.
Yeah, we joined Algair. I know this statistic. We joined Algair in 2010 or 2011
Yeah.
with revenue of 20 million. If you calculate with revenues, it's probably 40 times, 42
50
times. So
times.
yeah, it's been a great ride, and I think the people we have met along the way, including Algair, including all the companies that have joined this big river, have all brought their own knowledge, and yeah, it's also been a fun time. I mean, this is now our family, right? These are our friends, this is our family, and we are really enjoying the journey as well.
Yeah. My next question is related also to the human capital of the company because in this kind of company is probably one of the most important aspects of the company. I don't know if you can tell us about your culture, your decentralized model, how well it's working for you.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I think that the way we look at human beings will keep evolving, will keep changing, right? So, uh, at the time of the Industrial Revolution, human beings were like machines, right? You treated them, you made them work 12 hours, 16 hours a day. You just made sure they stayed alive. They were like uh, it was a horrible condition. Today, human beings are very, very powerful because of the technologies we have created. So some young kid can create a application or a solution that can change the world. Yeah, I believe that because the technologies are all there. They're waiting to be harnessed. Now, how do you look at the human being in this situation? So our belief is that just like every child is curious. If I leave a child here, she will take my glasses, she will take my phone, she will look around. So in the same way, just like every child is curious, every human being wants to do well, wants to is entrepreneurial, wants to try out things, right? And our whole model is on building a flat, non-hierarchical global organization where to the highest extent possible, every individual gets this ability to build whatever they want to build, right? So the company then becomes not like a top-down hierarchy, but more like a framework that enables individuals. So it could be people who are with different business units who want to create, some new position in their business unit, some new leadership position. It could be people in an account who want to grow. Lufthansa, I want to be the biggest supplier of Lufthansa, whatever it is, right? Or
Yeah.
some new technology, and we are just a framework that enables that. And this we drive in many ways. We talk about it. It's there in our core values and so on. It's how we behave. It's in the floors that I'm sitting in. We have no offices. I've just taken a conference room for this call. It's there in how we travel, in our travel policies, which are flat. It is there in every aspect, right? So it's a very informal, non-hierarchical culture.
Yeah, it's very important for sure. Even I saw your post on LinkedIn about your name change because you were originally Manas Furoria and then now you are Manas Human because you have this global thinking about people. We are not part of specific countries you want to be or transmit that message?
I'm in the process of legally changing it. It'll still take a few more weeks, but the process is ongoing. But the idea is just this, that I think, if where I come from, where my father comes from, it's a village, and even 10 kilometers away, they say, those are the other guys, and we are different.
Yeah.
And then you go 500 kilometers, they say, but those guys are different. And I've been lucky to be born and traveled in many countries. And as a child, I lived in Iraq for some years because my father was a petroleum geologist. And in Iraq, we lived in the Arab part and then in the Kurdish part, and they're fighting each other. They're all great people, and you just are like, why are we fighting so much, right? And especially today with Ukraine and all of that, I think it's very important that we recognize that maybe, Alejandro, you are more similar to me than my brother is, right? And yes, in some ways not. Maybe you eat different or whatever, but it's just the world is now more and more one place, and the more we can rise up above our old ideas and embrace this future, I think the safer our children will be, uh, the less dangerous world we will leave for them. And that's the thinking, at least. Yeah.
Yeah, that's for sure. It was a very brave decision to change your surname. So
Especially to tell my parents, that was the most difficult part.
yeah. So, and continuing with the human capital and everything, people, when I talk about this business and I share how great company you are with other people always say, that kind of companies doesn't have competitive advantage. They are very similar. They are only riding or surfing a high growth market and everything. But when you study the company and the sector, you can find competitive advantage if you think about it. I don't know if you can share with us what is your point of view about the competitive advantage of Nagarro.
Yeah. So I will start by talking of two great companies which I admire a lot. One of them is Toyota, and one of them is Inditex, from Spain,
Yeah,
actually. And both of these companies are in uh, very competitive environments. And Toyota, I'm talking more about the 80s, and Inditex, I'm talking more about this century. But Toyota, in a very competitive world, they created a philosophy around quality, around total quality management, just in time. They created tools around it like cell manufacturing, Kanban, single minute exchange of dies. It's a whole philosophy and a culture, cell manufacturing, a way of people to talk to each other about problems and how to improve, continuous improvement, Kaizen. And based on certain key cornerstones of the philosophy, they developed a large body of knowledge. Yeah? And for many years and decades, they were right at the top. Today, everyone, and they open it up for the world. So
yeah,
today, every company around the world uses those technologies or those ideas, but they have, just they build competitive advantage from ideas, right? Then if you take Inditex, when the big retail chains, mostly American, were in a sort of disconnected way of working, large batches, buying 9 months or 12 months before the season in huge batches. And Inditex came with this idea of fast fashion and small lot sizes and working very closely with manufacturers and just quick supply and a culture, right? And most important is the culture.
yeah,
And if you walk into an Inditex building, you will see a different culture from what you walk into a American large retail chain. At least this was true some years ago when I was very deep in this area. And they have used it to build really competitive advantage. I mean, someone can sit and say, I can do what Inditex does. What is magical about it? But no, there is something magical about it, right? In the same way, our idea is to have agile intimate, high-end engineering problem solving. So we're not about taking huge amounts of work and taking it off for a year and coming back and delivering. We're about like intimacy, agility. When something has to be done yesterday, then we are the people to do it robustly. And to build that culture, it has to be a small team culture where everyone takes responsibility, where everyone knows what's happening, everyone is empowered. It needs a certain type of collaboration that you can pull all the technologies and all the knowledge you need from different parts of the company to address the client, right? To make the client successful. So that needs we started from that idea that we would compete in this space, and from that everything else has flown. The culture, the org design, etc. And now the tools and the sophisticated, decision making and AI tools and all of that. So I think it's a competitive advantage, time will tell, but I really think it's a very strong competitive advantage.
Yeah, culture is definitely one of the most underrated competitive advantage of most companies. It starts from that point, especially when the most valuable thing of the company is the people. I guess maybe when you are doing some great work, for example, for a specific industry, for example, for industrial clients or airlines or for whatever, it comes much easier to get clients in that sector or in that industry.
Yeah, I think we see it as three dimensions, right? Because there is a dimension of client, there is a dimension of region or country, and then there is a dimension of the type of solution, right? So if you have a client already in a particular industry, it becomes easier to get another client. But if you have a client in that industry which is looking for a particular solution, and you have built the solution like that also, then it's even easier. And in the same region, then it's even easier, right? Because our minds still think that, if I'm a South African company, I would like to see some South African case studies, right? So there is also that. So we see this as this three-dimensional space, and every time we are creating a new case study or a new testimonial, we are we're filling up this whole space, yeah.
Yeah.
So that any new client we can say, Mr. or Miss New Client, here is a case study which is very very close to you, yeah, very close to you in this space. So I think that gives a lot of momentum. Another thing which gives momentum is brand, right? And at least I feel, and it's not a proper study, but I feel that once you get past a few hundred million in revenue, then people start to hear your name, and they either hear your name for good things or for bad things, right? So if you hit a few hundred million and people are hearing your name for good reasons, then you just accelerate. And I think in the past we have seen this happen with many companies. Whereas if people are hearing your name for not so good reasons or with no great excitement, then you tend to flatten, right? So I think we have quite a lot going for us on culture, on the case study, the testimonial set that we are creating, and on frankly, also on the org design, because it's very special. It's very, very special. And also on the brand, after the listing, people now are starting to hear about us. We're also putting in much more effort to get the name out there. And then people are also starting to recognize uh, it's not just a vendor that we found and our special vendor. It's actually a a serious global company. So I think these are all working for
Yeah.
us.
The other day we were also talking about that part because you told me that when you get some scale, you will be able to charge a little bit more to the clients because they value the brand and what it represents, and it's going to help the margins of Nagarro in the future. Maybe it doesn't represent a lot for the client to charge like 5%, 7% more for the project, but it will be a big difference for you.
Exactly. our goal is always to charge the client fairly. What's a fair price? But you all know that compared to our peer group, our margins are a little on the lower side, and I don't think it's a pure, fair sort of point where we are. But I think that it's exactly as you said. For the clients, they are always ready to pay a fair price, but they also are looking for, especially newer clients, are looking for reassurance on the brand, right? I mean, they will easily pay a lot more to Accenture than they will pay to us, yeah, for the
Yeah,
same
same
service,
price.
right? Right. So I think that as our brand becomes more synonymous with quality and with reliability and with speed and impact, then we will be able to charge a little bit more. And that is enough to drive our margins into the middle of the peer group. I mean, we want to just be in a normal in the peer group. That's our goal.
Yeah, because that's also a common question about you. Because when you look at your revenue per employees per year, it's around 60,000 euros maybe. And some of your competitors like EPAM, Globan, etc., they have around 100,000 euros per year per employee. And you give me the other day a very clear explanation that is very useful.
Yeah, this is actually quite a different topic, I think. See, I think what happens is that if I go to a McDonald's in the heart of New York City, I will expect to pay more than if I go to a McDonald's in a small town in India, right? And that's the mindset of the procurement departments at all our customers. We work mostly with large customers which have very sophisticated procurement departments. So they are buying mainly on the basis of the confidence that we can execute in time with quality, because that's most important. I mean, if we have $1 million project, it's very likely that the client has many more millions riding on it. So they will not worry about, 100,000, 200,000, 300,000 up or down if it create doubt of execution. But given the same execution, if they decide to go with us, they will always talk to us about China prices for people in China and India prices for people in India and Romanian prices for people in Romania. And so they have their own benchmarks, of where each of these countries typically is. And even if they grant us that, okay, you hire at the top of the market, so we will give you a 90 percentile price in India, but it's not the price that you would get in the US, for example, right? So it's very different. So when you compare a lot of people compare the per employee rates, but I think it's a meaningless comparison unless you factor in which country are we talking about, because that's where the
Yeah,
difference comes
that's
from.
very important because the client knows or allows you to have a specific margin. They know your
Right.
cost and they let you to have this margin. But I think it maybe create a low cost advantage because in this time where all companies are trying to lower cost and everything, if you can provide the same project or the same service for much less price, your growth rate should be better than other companies in the future.
Yes, at the same time, just to be honest, India is a highly competitive market for talent. So everybody is in India. Okay, maybe not a couple of vendors who try to position themselves as not India, but everybody is in India. So, just like a few kilometers from where I am, you will have Google, you will have Accenture, you will have everyone you can name, Ericsson, everyone you can name, right? So it's a very competitive market. So I think that you can never win on cost alone. I
Okay.
mean, especially the kind of work we do, you have to win on the solution you're bringing, right?
Okay.
And how are you able to challenge the assumptions of the client, get new ideas for how to do the same thing better, and then to execute flawlessly.
Hmm.
So cost is not what we win on mostly. I mean, because there are always 100 companies who offer cheaper, you know, you know.
Yeah, yeah, it's much better. And you also said that once a client gets above 1 million revenue from you, you get very entrenched in their business and in their systems, and it becomes like perpetual client for the future.
Yes. See, what happens is that typically to start with a client, sometimes, you know, there's a project or there's some person in business who has some access to some funds, and they can call you in and say, hey, do this small project for us, 100K, 200K. That's very easy. I think at that point, it's easy to get, but easy to fall back out, right? So you get it, you do it, and then nothing else happens. But when you get to this to a million, typically at that time the procurement starts to say, "Hey, who are these guys? Should they be even here, right?" Or guys and girls, I should you say more exactly. And but at some point, you know, if this you survive past a million, then you almost never leave. You almost never leave, and you almost never stop growing uh, uh, if the client is big enough. I mean, if you have a small client, then maybe you stop growing, but you typically just keep growing. And we can see in our older clients how we are at CXO levels and totally, you know, very transformative and other places we are on the journey at different points. Yeah, it's just like a conveyor belt, right?
Yeah.
Up the chain.
Yeah, very, very informative. I'm going to switch to more financial questions, okay? Because in the last conference call with the great results you have, you revealed this ambition. It's not guidance, but it's like an ambition or a vision for the future. Like you call it the plan 10-20-30, which aims for 10 billion in revenue, 20% margin EBITDA, and 30% organic growth. Well,
Right. Yeah, so we've been talking about it for almost a year now, or more than a year now. But this was the first time we were talking about it publicly, I think. See, it's not an easy thing to shoot for. I think the 20% EBITDA margin is the easiest among the three, because it's fastest, right? Then the 10 billion is a long journey, of course. But if you go back uh, 8 years, we have like 10x in 8 years. We have grown 10x in 8 years uh, because we had our first, you know, senior management conflux, we call it, you know, 8 years ago, and we were with a recent acquisition less than 80 million. And if you go 10x from here, you're a 10 billion company. And internally, we believe that that's a goal that we want to reach, not only for the financial outcome, but to show the world that like a global non-hierarchical platform for is also a model to run a company. And these are always easy to show for 500 people, 1,000 people. I want to do it at scale, right? So we are very excited about this. I think that we, of course, will have along the way lots of challenges, you know, COVID, post-COVID, this up, down. But if we just stick on this path, the power of compounding is such that if we just keep at it in general, the general direction, we hope to get there. Right? So that's again not guidance, not this is
yeah,
just off the record personal dreams. Let's call them dreams, but this is what we want to try to achieve.
yeah. But for sure, you are one of the fastest growing companies in your sector. And for a sector that is very big, it's very, very fragmented, as we were talking the other day. And it's crazy to think how big is the market. You were
Right.
talking me that even the biggest players in your sector are like few percentage points of market share, and they are also growing 20% per year and everything.
Yeah, this market is huge, and no, I think we still haven't really tapped what this market can be. And I think that there are industries which are still at very basic levels of digitization. There are experiences which are still far from perfect. And then there are these new technologies which are sort of opening up whole new areas of possibility. And it's very fragmented, as you said, right? So I think that there is if we have to aim for 10, 20, 30, it's not so much about the market, it's about us. Can we do it, right? It's not whether the market is there. Market is, of course, there, right? It's more about us, I think.
Yeah, because technology changes doesn't stop. When some of your clients implement a new technology, all of their competitors are going to need that same technology, and they are going to call Nagarro or similar companies to implement that technology, and that change never ends. And when you
Right.
provide this kind of infrastructure to the companies and everything, that's like a flywheel.
Yeah, yeah. And you want to become such experts that they are looking to you for guidance on what has worked in which industry, and for us that's one of our themes to try to be the advisors on how to navigate these changes in technology. And we have been doing this for a while as technologists. uh, as I mentioned, we started actually from consultants, like management consultants, right, with supply chain problems in Belgium and all that, right, and making software to address that problem. But in between, we have become more technology oriented. We want to also go back to being able to assist with the business, right, more and more. And yeah, I think if we are able to be good partners with our clients, we will definitely always have work, always have work.
Yeah. Also, in the growing part of the company, I think it's good to share your views on capital allocation, okay? Because you recently did a buyback, sometimes you did M&A. What is your view between those two options?
See, in general, uh, we have a bit of the experience of Algair, which grew with M&A, and I think they may have done 30, 40, 50 deals in the past. And we as Nagarro have done about 10, 12 deals, and quite different from the way they used to do it. We are more about integrating the companies, one brand, set of systems, one set of uh, uh, even people allocation, people hiring systems, and so on. And I think that it very, very important for our ability to get great new people, to reach out to clients that we don't have access to pick up capabilities that we don't have, to be in regions that we are not. So I'm a big fan of M&A. 10 years ago, I was very skeptical. Now I'm a big fan, not of huge M&A, but of just interesting
Little small.
value generating M&A. The share buyback was uh, more the idea that we should know how to use all the tools at our disposal, right? This whole being a listed company is new for us, right? And buybacks are one of the tool sets that you have.
Yeah.
A 10 billion buyback is not much, yeah? But it was just more just to figure out how
Yeah.
to use the tools. And of course, we can't talk about the future, but definitely M&A will continue to be quite a big part of what we do.
Yeah, that's what we like about Nagarro, that you also are doing great in the business, but also in the capital allocation, you have a very clear thinking because clearly you can add more value with M&A. And eventually, if the shares are cheap, buybacks will provide some value also for the shareholders.
Yeah, I mean, we had this period in the last months where assets were really expensive, and that's why you may have seen that we have not done any recent deals.
Yeah,
But things are going back to normal, right? So I think we will get more opportunities in the
yeah,
coming.
great news. So, other topic very common in your conference call from analysts are all these working capital questions about receivables, payables, and everything. Because I think most people doesn't understand it, because it's typical in your industry for the client to pay you in 3 months, 4 months, but you have to pay monthly to your employees. So you need a positive working capital. So maybe it's around 10% revenues. And when you are growing 30% per year, if you grow revenues 300 million for the next year, you will need 30 to 40 million working capital. So that's a drag on free cash flow from operations. But people doesn't seem to understand it, and is the usual or the common thing in your industry.
Yeah, I mean, see, the way we work, what we invoice or get as revenue in one quarter, we receive the next quarter, right? That's kind of roughly speaking, right? And if in the meantime your revenue also grows, like it has been growing double digit for so many quarters, quarter on quarter is going double digit, then you need more working capital, and that's what's been adding up to this. I mean, there was one particular uh, client group that I mentioned on the analyst call, which was a public sector client group in the US, which had a change in their process of how they paid invoices, and which led to a single spike, uh, a specific spike. But most of the effect that you are seeing is because of the crazy growth. And actually, as the growth slows down, perhaps, yeah, or becomes a bit more normal, then you will see that situation start to change. But yeah, it's driven mainly by the growth of our and our business model in general.
Yeah. Also, you mentioned it. I saw your one tweet about you and talking about a potential listing in the US. So you are doing great in Germany. Everything is fine as long as the company is growing, generating value. People are going to recognize it. But when we saw the value difference, for example, for some of your peers traded on the US. The other day I was watching other competitor with the same EBITDA approximately like you, and it was trading 3 times bigger market cap. So there is a huge difference between the vision of the market, or how the market reacts to the value of the company.
Yeah, this is something that we will remain open-minded on. I think it remains to be seen. Couple of things remain to be seen. One is that we are a fresh company, freshly listed company with not much of a track record, and we have some things to resolve, from the past, which people have been talking about. I mean, I think once we fix those things, or once and these are all minor things, but if people think that they are a drag, then maybe it becomes a. So that's one part of it, right? Then there is the part that as your market cap grows, you start to attract serious American money. So for example, when you're a few billion in market cap, maybe pension funds step in and so on. So and it still remains to be seen how much of that participation we will get, and how much is ultimately finally the listing discount for listing in Germany. So let's keep our eyes open and minds open, but we are definitely a little surprised as well about the huge gap in valuations. And of course, at the end of the day, in the long term, we want to release value for all investors. So we keep that in mind for sure.
Thank you. That's a very clear thinking, or long-term thinking. Sorry. So other question is about your lease expense or office expense, because it's a big part. But you now have this working from anywhere policy, and it is benefit you in 2 ways maybe. First, it's easier to get employees because they like those working conditions, and you can lower a lot your office expense. Because when I was watching the results the other day, you were growing like 60%, our office expense only grew like 10%, 20%. And your EBITDA margin is expanding, but more importantly, your operating margin or EBIT is expanding even more than EBITDA because that office expense is growing very little and revenue is growing exponentially.
So that's very well put. For us, the main driver for this is the access to talent. We believe that talent can be productive from anywhere. We have done this for the last 2 years. Our employee satisfaction has been fantastic. Our client satisfaction has been fantastic. So it can be done, right? And we think that there is and especially in countries like India, where you have other issues with cities like air pollution, right? Where I'm sitting right now, we have to filter all the air because it's very, very bad outside. So people want to be in smaller towns where they can breathe properly, better quality of life, and we want to support that, right? And so I think that the fact that our office expenses are not rising as much is good, but it's not the reason why we are doing it, because we also are spending a bit more on travel and stays, and people are meeting more often, and that may not show it may come in the cost of the projects, but it's a significant expense. But overall, I think that the uh, also the globalization of the company, when you are all online, then whether you are in Romania or in Dubai or in Saudi or in Philippines, you're all equal and working together. Whereas if your one team is in the office and other people are remote, then it has other challenges. So yeah, I think that I know you're asking this question more financially, and I think there are advantages, but I think the bigger advantage is access to talent and the productivity. In India, for example, the average commute time is 1 hour each way. It's 55 minutes or so each way. So 2 hours in commute, that's your life. That changes your life if you can free that up, right?
I guess that maybe bigger companies in India are still forcing employees to go to the office and everything after COVID because they have more rigid thinking, but you have this open thinking and it's helping you with your recruiting efforts.
Yes, I think they all want to be remote, but the way their culture has been organized, in my opinion, is such that it doesn't make remote very easy. So they are all saying we're coming back to the office temporarily, and then we will go back to remote. Whereas our thinking is that remote is working very well, and we would like to just support it and support people with it and support our clients with it. So yes, it is a competitive advantage, I think, at
Yeah,
the moment.
yeah, for sure. And also in the conference call, you mentioned it that the hiring environment is getting better because with all of these technology blow-ups that are happening and there are more available talent to hire.
Yes, that's true. I mean, we're seeing that in many of our markets, the the crazy wage inflation is dropping, the crazy attrition is coming down. We are, like in India, for example, more or less at normal levels of wage inflation and of attrition, and we are able to find talent without having to, really run hard after it. But of course, the best talent that we are looking for is never easy to get, right? So it's always we continue to keep our hiring teams running and chasing good talent, but it's a much easier environment than it was some months ago.
Yeah, yeah, it's good news for the future because even you don't have a lot of exposure to technology clients, which is softening right now. Other sectors are doing great, going well, but the technology sector are having some issues right now.
Exactly, exactly. So we see some sectors, and especially the technology or ISV sector, being a little bit more cautious and slowing down. Other sectors are basically on their journey to big change, to transformation, and they cannot afford to stop for a year that journey because it's so competitively important for them. So I think that it's interesting that 12 months ago it was the other way around, where the tech companies were fastest growing.
Yeah.
But what's the nature of the economy? I
Yeah.
think some things go faster sometimes, some things go slower
Yeah.
sometimes. And for us, it's very important that we are diversified. I mean, in terms of regions, and this is coming from a simple entrepreneur's mindset. We are just so afraid of all our eggs in one basket. We are diversified across countries, we are diversified across solutions, diversified across verticals. So yeah, that helps us, keeps us safe.
Yeah, because you have a very little client concentration. It's
Yes,
very unusual to see that, and it reduces risk and gives you more confidence.
yes, yes. Our top 10 clients are like a quarter of our revenue, which is very unusual for
Yeah,
our space.
yeah, it's very unusual. The other thing that we like a lot about Nagarro is that you are acting like true owners or custodians of capital from the shareholders, because it usually doesn't appear in the analyst reports, but it is even more important that quarter guidance and the next quarter results and everything, because when I see your annual report, I see that, for example, you have a very low salary, very modest compared to the industry. You don't overspend in stock options. For example, other companies with your same size are spending like 30, 40, 50 million a year, and you are only spending 10% of that, like 3, 5, 4 million a year. You don't wear fancy clothes. You don't have fancy offices and everything. That is true culture, because what you are asking the employees to do, you are doing by yourself, are being an example for the company. So it's really great to see that, very unusual in those times, and it should be valued more from the market, I guess, because it usually then didn't get the mention that it deserves.
No, I think this is a great point. I think that we actually had to fight very hard with a supervisory board and internally to get a low salary,
Yeah.
because the company is being set up for the long term, not for only the time that I'm here. We're trying to build one of the world's great companies, and it's important that we have all our senior management is very flat. Everybody is almost at the same salary level, and we are all owners in the company. Yeah, I mean, of course, some of us got in earlier, some got in later, some at different points, but all owners in the company. And it's that ownership that is going to be the biggest thing that we generate wealth from, right? And so, with that mindset, we are uh, trying to build this out. And I tell you, it also makes collaboration more easy because it's not based on targets that you have with variable pay, that this is my lead, that's your business, and
Yeah.
you're fighting all the. And it also makes for a lot more fun because you're chasing, you're enjoying, working with other people, and oh, let's do this, we can now achieve this and that. So I think that we have somehow got this working. And the most magical part is that when someone joins us from an M&A, and they come from a whole different story,
Yeah.
but in many small ways, including saying, that, okay, now you are a co-founder of Nagarro. When you asked about the history of Nagarro, I said, this is my part of the history, but there are many other parts of the histories. And in many small ways and big ways, we make them feel also completely part of the story. And so I think this is something very important, and you are perfectly right to say it. It's something which doesn't show up in reports and analyst reports, etc., but is very much fundamental to the kind of company we are, right? And fundamental to, I think, also our chances of success towards our dreams and goals. So yeah, thanks. Very, very, very wise of you to pick that point.
Yeah, it's very important because great companies like, for example, Berkshire Hathaway with Warren Buffett, they are also true owners because they have a very low salary. The other day we were talking about constellation software, which it says a lot about you because this is very niche, very rare company, but the founder has a $0 salary. No, they only get money from the dividends and stock appreciation in the future. Also, in my company, I try to forgo the salary. I have a zero salary, but the regulator doesn't allow us. It's a little similar to your history. So I have a little, as little as possible. My way of earning money is dividends or doing well in the fund. So I think
Right.
that's very very important to value that kind of things. And most importantly, you are an example for your employees, the way you told, the kind of person you are, because you are a good person, and it's very strange to find that in sometimes in the corporate world. You seem to be with your feet on the ground, really.
I don't know about that, but yeah, it's for me. We're just being ourselves, and I can only say that if you come in here, I'm in the Gurgaon office today, and you walk down the halls, you will meet many, many, many good people, right? And that becomes the culture. I think everyone is good, but if you have an environment which is safe, which is not hierarchical,
Yeah.
not yes sir, yes ma'am. It's more about more open, friendly, casual. Then it just people switch to that kind of mode, more collaborative. Things will get done, and I think this is one of the really. I appreciate your saying that. It's somehow the way our culture has developed. Yeah? So
Yeah, little details because I enjoy a lot when I see you on the conference call with the polo t-shirt of Nagarro and everything. So
yeah, yeah,
I guess I need to get one of those polo
yeah.
t-shirts.
We can slip one to you, I guess.
So one question about risks, because every company has risks. So what keeps you awake in the night? What are your biggest risks in your business? What is the most thing to think about?
So, I think in the past years, my big theme has been building a truly global company because, all of us are somehow instinctively local. So, I'm Austrian, I'm Indian, I'm Chinese, I'm Filipino, and then everything becomes like a small little island, and you don't really leverage the power of this huge and experience and knowledge of this huge company. And I'm very happy to say that now I'm not as concerned about it because the bulk of the work has been done. The last bits are left. So I think it's a problem solved, but still there's an eye on that. The second thing now for us is to move up the value chain a bit, right? So I earlier talked about trying to be more in the uh, business side as well. So it's not to say that we will not care about engineering. We will always be engineering first, right? We are a technology company, and that will always be our super strength. But enough to be able to uh, guide our clients on certain business aspects or help them with ideas and innovations and move up the value chain as a result. This is our big theme. And we keep repeating that. In fact, right after this call, we have another informal call with all our calls are completely uh, optional. Whoever wants dials in, and it's open to the company, and but it's again about just moving up the value chain. And this is a theme that we don't want to build a separate consulting organization which takes that whole idea and works on it. We want everyone in the company to think differently. Yeah, and we've been working on it for 1 or 2 years. I think that I see this as a theme, and the reason why I call it a risk is because I think that software will become easier and easier to write. Yeah,
Oh,
it always becoming easier to write, and I think that we are very well protected because we are not about huge, large software projects. We're about small projects anyway, and we are designed to be a company of 1,000 small projects, not of a few large projects or large customers or whatever. So we are well defended. But as software becomes easier to write, I think the ability to connect the dots, to understand the business context, to connect with the stakeholders, to build that consensus, to some of the soft skills around it will become more important. And so we want to be there before that happens, right? So that's, I would say, the big risk. Risk or not really risk, but the big opportunity perhaps for us to just get there before everyone else does.
yeah, it's very important point of view because when people think about this business, they are always worried about the macroeconomic and interest rates and everything. But what is important is to have a very updated engineers and keeping up with the latest technology. That's the at least from our experience investing in your sector is one of the most important things to be always at the edge.
Yeah, I mean, we are basically a human capital company, as you said in the beginning. And for when we interact with our colleagues, we don't even say employees, because that sounds very old
Yeah,
world, right? When we interact with our colleagues, we are always have to see two things. One is how are we able to give them a fantastic experience so that they feel that uh, uh, they are really autonomous, they can do things, they feel energized. And the second is how can we help them in their learning goals and in the learning pathways? How can we make champions out of them, right? Help them
yeah.
become champions. And these are the things that really the whole company is about. There is nothing else. I mean, of course, there's a lot of sales and this and that, but this is the heart of the company.
Yeah, we like a lot. That's very, very important, I think. So, one little question I forget about the financial part. When I was looking at your capital expenditures in context of revenues, it's very low compared with other companies in your sector. I don't know if it's the other companies capitalize on cost or is just a business mix.
See, I don't know about other companies, but in general, we try not to capitalize our costs just because it becomes a very seductive way to manage
Yeah.
your well, right?
Yeah.
We want to avoid that. But it also could be that people are spending more on infrastructure. We don't do much infrastructure. We have tried to be more focused as a company on a particular type of business. So maybe it could be a combination of these factors.
Yeah, it makes sense. So I guess I don't want to take more time from you. I enjoyed a lot this interview. I hope that the people are going to discover a great company, a great person like you. And every time I talk with you, I learn something because that is very important for me to be always learning from people more intelligent than you. So it's
Alejandro, you are just very modest. I mean, which also shows how wise you are. But thank you so much for having me, and I really again feel very special about the retail investors in Spain who have supported us. And I just love the fact that we are on Twitter and all that. It's maybe I shouldn't overdo it, but it's just fun. It's very nice. And
yeah,
for me, it's like connecting worlds, right? For me, this idea of us as a global village, the whole world, is very important. So for me, it adds to my quality of life to have this link, and it's because of you. So thank you so much.
Yeah, for sure. I guess after this interview, you will have a lot of Spanish fans cheering Nagarro. So it's a pleasure. As I said, I usually don't meet with management because I a very introvert person, but you also told me that you are an introvert person, so we understand very well, and it's always a pleasure to share time with you. I hope you the best. I hope you to have you again in the future in the channel to share the progress of Nagarro, what you are doing, and learning from you. That's the most important part. So nice to
Thank you
meet
so much.
you.
Carol. Thank
Thank
you.
you.